This is the USC Football Podcast. Here are your hosts, Tim Prangley of LAFB and Gabe Greenlee of the Trojan Blade.
Welcome back for the latest episode of USC Football Podcast. Today, we're going to review USC's 59-13 drubbing of the Georgia Southern Eagles. We do this in a show we called our Trojan Report Card. Here, we're going to give you guys a letter grade for each position group on both sides of the ball and highlight some key plays and key players.
Hey, Tim. Great to be back with you for another episode.
Yeah, Gabe, it was a great game for players on the team, for the season, and their careers.
Now, you were at the game, obviously. I was not. And since we haven't talked since yesterday, I do have to ask you, what was the Helton reception like?
Yeah, I have to be honest, it was kind of mixed, and it was really good to see a great guy, Sua Cravens, and a number of players also. I think Tyler Vaughns was at the game, but Sua was actually on the sidelines and wanted to welcome Coach Helton back to the Coliseum as he came on to the field. So it was great to see that. But I would say the amount of fans that were there, number one, I'm glad it wasn't a sellout for this reason. But the boo itself didn't seem much louder than you would normally get because every time the opposing team takes the field, there's a boo. It was slightly louder. I was in the tunnel corner where you have the old Trojan, the herd section. You know, a lot of diehards are right over in that corner that definitely had no love for Helton. Mm-hmm. And so there was a little extra, but I would say not much in volume and not much in length of time, but it was a little bit louder and a little bit longer than the average team would get.
All right. Yeah, that's good to hear. They didn't make too big a deal about it on the TV copy. I'm not sure if you've heard the broadcast yet, but yeah, they made it seem like it wasn't too extreme, but they did mention that there were boos, and I did see some videos on social media, but it was nothing crazy. It actually was a lot quieter than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, much more seamless. And I know a lot of listeners that listen to this podcast were there. And while it might have been tempting, I do hope that a lot of you guys just decided to take the high road, sit on your hands. And if you're not going to thank Coach Helton for his time here, at least not make his return to a place where he spent years as an assistant coach and a head coach doing his best to help the Trojans to win. So overall, I'm happy with the way Trojans handled the situation.
Yeah, completely agree with that. Now, before we get into the report card, let's just get into some housekeeping. So where to find us on the socials. I am at the Trojan Blade on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Tim is on Twitter and Instagram at Tim_Prangley. He was posting a bunch of cool pictures from the game, so make sure you guys go give him a follow. You can also find Tim over at LAFB. Every single week, he and Ryan are going to be doing the Conquest Call-In Show, and they are posting daily content on the website as well. Make sure you're subscribing to the USC Football Podcast YouTube. The link is in the show notes as always. And we also do have 5 new 5-star reviews to read this week. We are going to read each and every single one. And if you guys have anything you want read on the show, make sure you go to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review, write whatever you want within reason, and it will be read on the show. So starting off with Rick 70s. Rick says, this is a kick-ass podcast that is very detail-oriented. Gabe and Tim have great chemistry and give their own opinions regardless if they agree or disagree. Gabe can be very harsh at times, but he has very high standards for SC, and I agree with him. Tim is also honest and balanced. To me, this is the best podcast when it comes to Trojan football and sports in general.
Yeah, well, thanks, Rick. This is really easy for Gabe and I to do as far as the going back and forth with each other, but it's the format that we're working on right now, Gabe, right? It's like we do this all the time in the off season and during the season. We have these conversations, but I'm glad you can pick up on the chemistry between us because, again, these are conversations we've been having for years. The podcast is new, but these conversations are definitely nothing new, Gabe.
Yeah, so many times me and Tim have been talking on the phone and we look down and it says like 2 or 3 hours. So yeah, we spend a lot of time talking about USC football. Glad to hear that is coming through on the audio. Next up from Angels fan 1522. He says, as a USC alum with a brother who went to Utah and another going to UCLA, it is nice to have a podcast to get me through the offseason and between games. Fight on, guys.
Yeah, again, growing up in Southern California where you were lucky to get 5 minutes on the radio, little snip here, you'd probably get a couple articles in the Times or the Register and the Press Telegram. I always felt like there wasn't enough coverage. Now it seems like in this space over the past 2 years, the first year I got into this, there was not a lot of people doing it, but it does seem like now there's so much content. We appreciate all of you for being here for sure.
Yeah, there's a million choices out there. There's a ton of podcasts. There's a ton of YouTube channels now. So yeah, really appreciate all of you who are riding with us. Next, from Minnesota Trojan, he says, love the efficiency of your work. Both the podcast and videos are informative, honest, and brief. Your competition often goes on for hours. Don't do that. Haha. Thanks for the great content. What I'll say to that, there are a lot of different styles out there. Ours is definitely more concise and to the point. So thank you for pointing that out. That definitely was the goal when we decided to start this podcast.
And it will continue to be. But I do think that Gabe and I are trying to loosen it up a little bit as far as the conversation goes. We have also heard the opposite. I'm sure, Gabe, you've heard in DMs as well, how they'd like us just to sit down and kind of have a conversation. I think you guys just get ready. You know, those of you guys are here with us. This is a work in progress. We are enjoying, obviously, we've talked to each other for years. Gabe and I would love to get back to those more conversational style, but we can't change who we are.
Yeah, podcasting definitely is more difficult than I had originally thought. We're having a great time doing it. And as we go on, we will naturally find that balance between being professional, being in show mode, but also being funny and goofy and just loosening up in general. Next up from Marcos Toad, he says, hey, Tim and Gabe, loving the show. Perfect balance of informative and entertaining. Anyway, here's a question I'd like both your opinions on. If Lynn is gone after this year, who do you see as a potential candidate to take his job? An assistant coach within the program, or maybe a DC, or even a head coach somewhere else?
Yeah, that's a great question. And in a perfect world, Danton Lynn's around for 3 more years, and they win a couple national championships. But not everybody is a Brett Venables, that's going to sit there as a coordinator for the better part of a decade or more. Usually those guys, they want to move on to something bigger, better. And I would be highly surprised if it's just like Pete Carroll and he has that NFL itch to him. And quite frankly, if you have a coach that doesn't always want to push for higher and better, that's that alpha guy, that I don't think you have a great coach or a great coordinator. So I do expect that, sooner or later, this is going to happen. It's not going to be a Clemson Venerables thing where he's around for a long time. But I think people I've heard say, oh yeah, well, we'll just plug and play. No problem. We'll bring in Doug Belk, and he has experience with Houston. But then you have questions about Rob Ryan. I don't think Rob Ryan's going to be around that long. I think Rob's getting ready to retire. This is just more as, being with his buddy Danton Lynn, and then also just helping his son to get his kind of feet wet in coaching. So I don't think that's really an option. People might say about Eric Henderson. Eric Henderson has no defensive coordinator history, and I don't know if he has any aspirations to become a defensive coordinator. So there's lots of questions, but really, I think the answer here is, Gabe, I think it'd be someone out of the blue, kind of like we've been like, I'm sorry, what? One of those moments, like Lincoln Riley, new head coach at USC. Mm-hmm. Eric Henderson, new defensive tackles coach here at USC. Rob Ryan, new linebackers coach for USC. I think it's going to be this staff with Jen Cohen. It's just going to be and Bowden. I think that they are going to swing for the fences. So the answer to your question, the roundabout answer I'm getting to right now is, I think it's going to be someone that nobody expects, but everyone's going to be happy with. I think they're going to swing for the fences, and I think they'll go for everyone, whether the top names are out there. And once you see what's going on with this defense and how well you can perform, remember, if you're a coach who's always looking to be promoted, you want to come to a USC, a program, or back in the day under Saban, you want to go to where you stop, you're a coordinator, and then you can become a head coach or a coordinator in the NFL. And so this is the place for that. So my answer is, it's somebody that's on nobody's radar. I don't think it could be, but I don't think it's going to be somebody from within the system.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, we just saw Gus Malzahn at Central Florida. He's a little disenfranchised with where college football is going. So he bails on that head coaching job to become a coordinator. So I think we're going to see more of that in the coming years as college football just gets more and more hectic, more and more insane. So yeah, I'd say a Gus Malzahn type of hire just on the defensive side of the ball. Finally, our last review comes from New York Trojan. He says, I would love to hear you elaborate on the DJ and how the athletic department knows the fans are sick of him. I've been banging this drum for years now. His performance against Missouri State was, if anything, muted compared to years past. We brought this guy with us to Vegas for the Pac-12 title game against Utah, for goodness sake. I've heard him shouting his shtick at the Natty on TV. I nearly canceled my season tickets over this guy because he is so loud, so frequent, and just leaves no room for the band or natural fan behavior in the stadium, and he's been doing it for years. Is there anything we can do? I even brought it up to Mike Bone one year when I saw him at a basketball game. Well, New York Trojan, thank you for the 5-star review. All I can tell you is that the athletic department and the school are aware of the massive amount of complaints about him. Don't know what steps they're going to take, if any. Don't know if any change is coming, but they are aware that a lot of the fans are dissatisfied with it. So hopefully that brings you some peace. I don't know if they're going to do anything. I wish I could tell you more, but that's all I know on that.
It's more of a generational thing, I think, Gabe, from what I've seen just being at the games. I would fully agree. I've talked to my dad, who's quite open and nothing really rattles him, but he has talked about the volume, the pregame volume. And now, but I could also appreciate what they're trying to do as far as the environment. I mean, let's face it, Trojan fans, you guys have all been the home games. We are not the most lively group out there. And I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to inject some kind of energy in. Whether it's working is very debatable. There's a couple of things that they do. Just being on the field, I can hear it. I can hear the crowd getting into it. But then there's also some misses that I hear quite often as well. I can say that it does help with the energy at times, but I honestly think that there is a balance. And I can hear what you're saying, that maybe the balance is taking a little bit too far from the traditional football atmosphere with the best marching band in the entire world, the Trojan Marching Band. I think that should be the emphasis of the experience. And then maybe a DJ adds in a little here or there. But I think there's too much if you guys get out to Galen and go to the basketball games. I think it's too much of turning the football game into a basketball game for my liking. Because quite frankly, even the Trojan basketball band is also truly amazing with the bass and the drums, the full set of drums. So there has to be a balance. And there definitely needs to be some work, because not everybody is a college student that's really getting excited into the modern music that a lot of the older generation are not going to connect with to begin with. But the volume at times, again, it's been a couple of years since I've been in the stands, but about 4 years ago I was in the stands with my dad. At times, the volume level was extremely high, almost to the point where my dad's like, "Look, I'm going to go hang out in the hall and in the concessions because it's just a little bit too loud for me." And I have to agree with them. It is really loud, the volume.
It's too loud, yeah.
I think what you're going to see is, I think there's going to be some concessions made. I don't think that DJ Malski is going anywhere, but I do think that maybe they will pare back the volume as well as the interaction. So, yeah, there's pushback both ways, but I will tell you, there's also players and the student section that absolutely love it, Gabe.
And I guess we should probably say it's nothing personal against DJ Malski. Like, he's just doing his job. He isn't the issue. It's more or less just the situation that we find ourselves in. The noise level, having a DJ in general. Like, I don't really like it. I mean, I'm 27 years old, so maybe I'm just turning into a grumpy old man. I don't know. But, like, we had a DJ at my high school when I went to Vista Marietta, and I thought it was annoying then. Like, I want to hear the band. I want to hear the football sounds. I don't want to hear all the stuff that's going on with that. I know it's not for me. It's for the student section and all that, but yeah, I think the game day atmosphere would improve greatly if he was not there. Yeah, and that is the last review we have. Really appreciate everyone who left one. Again, guys, that is on Apple Podcasts. Leave a 5-star review, and it will be read on the show. Tim, you want to get into the report card?
Yeah, before we do, though, I want to just touch on what I said at the beginning of the show. It was a game of firsts for a lot of the players, celebrating a lot of achievements. For instance, Anthony Lucas has been working really hard coming over from Texas A&M to log that first sack. Not only to get his first sack, he got a second sack. Mekhi Lemon, there was a lot brought up about the fact that Lemon and Lane did not get into the end zone last week. Lemon got in there twice, as well as Jacoby Lane logging that insane one-handed catch. DeCarlos Nicholson also in his second season logging his first interception. And then you got Sam Johnson finally getting on the field for a punt after 5 quarters of just either a turnover or a touchdown or field goal for USC. So he gets his first punt. Walker Lyons gets into the end zone with his touchdown. It was really nice to see Lake McCree celebrating with him. Just awesome. And just a game of firsts for people. Really good to see a lot of bubbles get broken this game as we get ready for Big Ten play.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware that we had a punter. So he dresses a little funny. That's a lot of white. You got the white tights, the white sleeves, white cleats. It's a little much, but I'll give him a pass if he can boom the ball for us. But Yeah, and that DeCarlos Nicholson interception was one of the best plays of the entire game.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen many people talking about that, which is interesting, but yeah, DeCarlos has been outstanding to start this season. Speaking of that, though, we should get into the report card.
Let's start where everything in football starts, and that's on the front line. So let's talk about on the offensive side. Let's talk about the offensive line group. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. After a pretty good showing last week, matter of fact, I know you were high for the first time really in a long time on Alani Noah's play. We noticed that there was one big shakeup to the starting lineup. Alani Noah was not there, but he was replaced with Micah Banuelos, which was, if you were paying attention in the offseason, a question where, would we see more of Micah Banuelos? And we did in this game.
Yeah, so Lincoln was actually asked about this postgame, and he called it an inside-the-walls decision to play Micah over Alani. And Alani actually didn't come into the game until the very end with the backup. So I don't know if this is going to be a week-to-week thing, if it's going to be a long-term thing. My gut says that it was a 1 week thing, and you can expect Alani Noah back in there next week, but we do have to wait and see on that.
Although Micah played very well, I also did think that when Alani came in, he looked motivated. He did look motivated. So I don't know again, Riley was very unclear what the circumstances were. And so it could be almost anything, but know that what we saw from Micah is that we do have an absolute capable backup, not only at left guard, but also at right guard. Remember, the conversation was who was going to get that left guard position. But now with Alani missing this game, we got to see Micah fill in there. And I be honest with you, I feel very comfortable with Micah in that position.
Yeah, I thought Micah played well, especially in his pass sets. Thought he was very sturdy. He was going up against some big boys in the middle of that Georgia Southern line. So really liked how sturdy he was, liked how calm he was. Would like to see him be a little more active when he's out in space pulling, because obviously in this Lincoln Riley offense, those guys are moving a lot. He's not the most athletic guy in the world, so it is crucial for him when he's out in space. He's not going to be covering ground like some of the other guys, so he needs to be very, very sound, know where his point of contact is, and obviously do a good job of blocking downfield.
See, I'm pushing back a little bit. I think you and I we've kind of gone back and forth a little bit on Micah for quite some time. You and I, we both feel he's a good lineman. We both feel that he's in different places of development. I'm a little more bullish. You're a little more cautious. But I think that on the plays that we saw, it was usually when he was on the second level. To me, I don't think it was a lack of athleticism from what I saw. I saw it more as him not being decisive, kind of what we were giving praise to Jada Mayaba last week as a quarterback. This week, I also think that if you're out there in space and you're blocking, you've got to make your decision, and you have to commit to it. And I thought on a couple of plays, which hurt his PFF run grade, was when it looked like he was maybe a bit indecisive.
Well, I guess how I'd phrase it, I think he's more athletic than Killian O'Connor, but not nearly as athletic as Elijah, Tobias, or Justin on that starting line. Like, he doesn't move the same way, doesn't cover ground the same way. But yeah, all that being said, that's not saying he's a bad player. He'll never be a good player. He just has some physical limitations. That's all. Like, I do think he played pretty well in this game, like I said. Definitely better in his pass sets than as a run blocker. But yeah, I was overall pleased with his performance.
And generally, just like the cornerback position, if you're not talking about offensive linemen in general, it's usually a pretty good thing.
Correct. Usually. I am being nitpicky. I can fully admit to that.
But I'm just saying it's good. Like, I'm not talking about, Elijah's, game. I'm not talking about how well Tobias Raymond played. I'm not talking about Justin Tuanu.
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, go to my Twitter. I have it clipped. There's a highlight. I'm sure you saw it live during the game, but Justin absolutely annihilated what I think was a defensive back for Georgia Southern, Tim, but it was a hell of a pancake.
Oh, it just launched him to another zip code. That guy definitely did not want any part of Justin, and he showed it on that play.
Micah was like stunned because he was sort of following him on the pole, and he saw Justin just clobber that guy, and he kind of had to look down to see if that really just happened. It was a really funny moment, but yeah, overall, very pleased with the offensive line. Jaden has been doing a phenomenal job of getting the ball out quickly, so there hasn't been too much on their plate, and obviously factoring in the talent gap, but we don't really need to talk about that. They're playing who's in front of them. That's all they can do right now. So overall, for the offensive line, I'm going to give them a solid B.
anytime you have the team net 755 yards, 309 yards rushing, and 312 yards passing, and for the vast majority of the night, that pocket was clean, passing lanes were open. It's hard for me to give anything less than I'm going to go with it. But there was nothing outstanding either. You're right. And I'm going to have to maybe kind of grade down to the competition. I'm going to give it a solid A- for the group. Speaking about 309 yards on 33 carries, let's talk about the running backs, which for the second week in a row have just continued to show us, with the one blemish where you have Jordan put the ball on the ground, lose the fumble early in the game. Coach Riley said that that's very atypical for Waymon to do something like that. So he had no problem putting him right back in, and then seeing it for the second week in a row. King Miller's for real, Gabe. This guy's for real.
Yeah, he's a literal home run threat every single time he touches the ball. Extremely decisive. I'd say he's more fast than quick, but yeah, he's a hell of a runner. Very curious to see what his role is going to be going forward. All I know is that he's making himself a lot of money for next year, whether that's at USC or somewhere else. He's going to be a featured back. He's going to be a big time player. And yeah, overall with this group, I mean, there's not much to talk about just because it was so clearly an A+. Waymon Jordan is special. He's different. His vision is elite. He's very agile despite his thicker, bigger build. He also showed up in pass protection as well. He had some very good reps protecting Jaden. He was very much a factor working with the offensive line and picking up some blitzers. So love to see that from him. And Eli Sanders just continues to show what a solid back he is. Yeah. Everyone knows about the speed and the high knees and all that, but I think his vision is really underrated. Like, he's a very experienced guy. That's clear when you watch him, but our running back room was just loaded 1, 2, 3. And that's not even including Brian Jackson, who didn't play in this game. So yeah, this is an easy A+ for me overall.
Yeah, Brian Jackson was out for the game, but you're right. That Eli Sanders speed is real. And he gets to the edge and he beats guys to the edge. And once he gets going upfield, you're guaranteed 10, 15 yards. So it's going to be great to see. We did have questions in the preseason about that speed translating, but clearly that is football speed. And there's an option in the passing game. Yeah, nothing but an A+ for this room would be appropriate. Well, let's move to tight end then. Okay. Tight end room, again, for the second week in a row, they're getting pay dirt. From all last year, there were no touchdowns to now. I talked about earlier, we have Walker Lyons getting his first touchdown. That means that we have 3 tight ends that have now gotten touchdowns, Tabarachi and Lake McCree getting their touchdowns last year. And you have Walker Lyons joining him this week. And then we almost had a very special event, Gabe, happen, but it didn't happen.
If you guys could have heard me losing my absolute mind, screaming at the TV when that number 18 came into the game, I saw Joey Olsen. He got targeted. He wasn't able to bring the ball in, and it absolutely crushed my soul. So we have to wait another week for the Joey Olsen as elite agenda to be fully pushed. But talking about the guys that actually did make an impact, Walker Lyons is pretty damn fast. You saw that on that little sprint out dump off that they did, but also on that big, long Mekhi Lemon touchdown. He was hustling downfield. He's got some serious burst to him. It takes him a little bit to get going to full speed, but when he's there, yeah, like we saw last week against Missouri State with Lake, Walker has some good speed to him.
Everybody in the country was after Walker Lyons. Everybody,
Yes.
Georgia,
yeah,
wanted to pull in, a tight end, and it just seems like elite tight ends are coming to USC first for Hansen, and now you have Coach Savage there, and so I think that the tight end room is playing solid. Like you said, those receptions, they get the touchdown for Lyons, but also blocking downfield. I think this unit's really coming into their own, and we're starting to see it as a valid weapon. And you made a really interesting point about the third receiver.
Yeah, so offline, me and Tim were talking, and I will give full credit to my comment section on YouTube for this because they're actually the ones that said it. I'm sure other people have said it too, but that's where I saw it. With the lack of a proven wide receiver 3 on this team, Lake and Walker might just be the de facto wide receiver 3. Because Jaden looks a lot more comfortable going to the middle of the field, going to his check down, which last year he wasn't really doing. But this year he seems to have added that to his arsenal. So if you have Lake McCree and Walker Lyons in the middle of the field working the seams, then that is going to be your wide receiver 3, and I am absolutely on board with that.
So I was trying to figure out how I could downgrade how I watch the performance. There's really not many tangible ways to do that. So therefore, there's only one grade available, which is an A. They did everything extremely well in this game. Nothing extremely flashy, but everything they did do was to standard.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to give him a solid A as well. Really liked what we saw in the blocking game, and Walker obviously had that touchdown. So yeah, very good day for the tight ends. Now let's move to the wide receiver position. So the wide receiver room is kind of in two different groups. Like you have Lemon and Lane, and then there's everybody else. Now I'm going to grade them as a whole, but Lemon and Lane are so far above everybody else. It's kind of just like its own conversation, I guess. Like Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane are the best wide receiver duo in the country for me. I know you have Tate and Smith at Ohio State. Don't really care. I take Lemon and Lane personally. They're both so different. You really have a rounded out wide receiver room when you have those two out there. You have the big playability of Jacoby, and then you have the do-it-all ability of a guy like Mekhi Lemon. So yeah, there's a ton of question marks for me with the rest of this group. I do think that Tanu Kynes is going to be that third wide receiver on the field this year. And he'll certainly continue to develop and get better and better each week, probably get a bigger role each week as well. But yeah, we really didn't see much of anything else from the wideouts in this game.
Agreed on Lemon and Lane. Both of them on 7 catches had close to 250 yards receiving.
Insane.
Both had their long receptions. Lemon was targeted 6 times with 4 catches. And then you have Lane targeted 4 times with 3 catches, both being highly productive. Lemon's over 300 yards in the past 2 games. His yak yards are insane. He had 113 yards after the catch.
Jeez.
In that game, which is not surprising. But what I keep trying to tell people, and you saw it on that long touchdown run, is he is far more tough than people give him credit for. The way he's built, he just sheds tacklers and then makes one guy miss, and then he'll use his speed to get to the end zone. Gabe and I talk about it all the time. Just what an all-around great wide receiver is. There's no surprise that he's so highly coveted in these mock drafts for the NFL, because he does every aspect of the game right. And then Lane, just that freakish catch that he showed us again, just what his catch radius is. I am going to say he's going to have to be a bit careful, because being up close, there were a couple of plays where he's on the edge of getting an offensive pass interference call. And I will tell you, especially on 2nd down, or 3rd down, those can kill drives when you have defenses that you're not going to be able to torch like they've done the first 2 games. That's my only slightly negative thing. But one thing I will also say is that in the Big Ten, I've actually seen that called, Gabe, probably even more than we were seeing, believe it or not, in the Pac-12. So outside of that, I can't think of one single negative thing to say about the offensive group. I do agree with you as far as talking about that Tanu Kynes is going to be that third receiver, because there's nobody else really on this team that I see taking the top off the defense the way he'll be able to do it, and also catching the ball underneath and then just breaking angles with his speed. I think that this wide receiver unit is elite. And I think that I would love to see, though, a 3, 4, and 5 guys step up, because, man, relying on these two, when Lemon tweaked his ankle,
oh God,
by the way, that was a nervous moment. And I think people have to realize is that we might be an injury away, because then all you do is you have the defense scheme for one or the other, whichever one's injured. And that's going to make one of these guys step up.
Yeah. The big thing with Tanook too, the blocking is pretty incredible, especially for a freshman. Like, he gives everything he has when he's blocking, and he's pretty damn good at it too. Like, it's not just an effort thing. I really like what I see from him, but yeah, the rest of this room kind of is a question mark. Like, Zacharias Williams, he had that big play. That was just a busting coverage.
Yeah.
So he made the play that he was supposed to. Very good job, but don't really think you can take too much from that. And the whole DJ Jordan thing is very, I guess, curious to me. I mean, that kid's such an athlete, such good vision. He had good hands in high school. So I'm curious to see how his role is going to grow, because he is getting more reps. That's a good sign. But I'm curious to see if the production is going to follow with that.
Yeah, used properly, DJ can absolutely be a weapon, and seems like a weapon that'd be very useful in this Lincoln Riley scheme. So I think it's a matter of time with him. I do think later in the season we will see him break out.
So what do you got for a grade?
Well, when you put up those kinds of numbers and you make freakish catches, and if you're a Jacoby Lane, and if you're breaking tackles, then juking a guy out of his pants and sprinting to the end zone like Lane did, it's kind of hard not to give this group again. And Jaden had, now I know some of it was tight end work, but the majority of it was the wide receivers. And when you have 412 yards through the air, well, actually, if you add on Longstreet's 34, so you have 446 yards through the air. You got to give your receivers an A.
Yeah, I gave him an A- only because we didn't really see much from anybody else, and that's really what I wanted to see going into this game. But yeah, A-, A. They definitely had a very good day, especially at the top.
That brings us to the quarterbacks. And I'll tell you, like I said in the last episode, there were two areas on this offense that really were the big question marks coming from the offseason into the season. And I know you guys out there, we just played 2 tune-up games, quite frankly, and we're not going to see any really tough defenses, most likely, until we get to Illinois on the road. However, given the defenses that he's had, Jayden has done a really good job. Last week, there were, to my memory, there were no turnover-worthy plays in
None.
that first game. And then there were maybe 1 or 2 in this one. And the one does give me some pause. It looked like, Gabe and I looked at the play. It looks like the linebacker fakes a stunt, then backs up into coverage. And I don't know if that's what threw Jayden off, but he had a clean pocket. He could have sat in there, and there were open receivers. Matter of fact, we were talking about Hines. Hines was open at the bottom of this at the bottom of the screen on TV on the TV copy. It just seemed like for whatever reason he reverted back to panic mode, rolled out, and threw across his body to a ball that was lucky that it was not intercepted. And not that, listen, everybody, even in the NFL, great quarterbacks throw interceptions, but it just is worrisome when it's that way. I've seen the comparison made to Sam Darnold. Gabe and I've also talked about this, but it seemed like Sam Darnold, early Carson Palmer, they had that big arm and they would just test defenses and they'd try to fit balls in that just weren't there. They were so used to carving up high school defenses that they would just try to thread these balls in. They were gunslingers, and that's what a gunslinger is, right? It's going to be these explosive, crazy plays with big numbers. And there's also going to be the flip side of that is you could have those turnovers. This one goes into that category. It's not that. It's where it just seemed like Jayden lost his poise. And we need him to trust this offensive line. I don't know if it was designed to roll out, but if it wasn't, he should not have been escaping the pocket. Sit in there and go through your progressions. But how am I going to bitch about somebody that threw 412 yards, 4 touchdowns, and we'll give him a half interception because that probably should have been intercepted. But I was very happy with the play overall. Longstreet came in for a little bit of mop-up duty. So hard to argue with Jayden's overall day. With that half interception, I'm going to give him an A-.
Yeah, there was a brief period of time in that game. It was like late second quarter, I think, where the whole kind of team just kind of lost our heads, like on defense, which we'll talk about in a minute. We were getting gashed and Jayden just made some errant throws. Like there's a difference between being overconfident and not seeing it. And on that should have been pick, he just wasn't seeing it. So that is something to monitor going forward when things aren't clean, when it gets muddied. How is he going to react? Is he going to revert to last year's version of Jayden? Or is he going to be the cool, calm, and collected one we've seen up to this point this year? But like Tim said, phenomenal on the day. Great first 2 weeks. He's generally calm, in control, not doing anything special. Like we haven't seen any of those ridiculous rope throws he made against Notre Dame last year on the sideline. But everything has just given his guys a chance to make a play. He trusts his receivers. Most of the time, he trusts his offensive line. So yeah, overall, I'm going to give him a B+. It would have been an A, but that ball should have been picked off. I'm counting that as a turnover personally. So yeah, that is it for the offense. Tim, you want to move over to the defense?
Yeah, so let's talk about the defense because that's always been on the lips of all of the national commentators, how USC doesn't play defense. Even last year, they had the audacity, a bunch of them, to talk about how USC just defense this, defense that, when there were huge strides made by Danton Lynn's squad last year. This is now in year 2. We are expecting some special things. We won't be talking about an offense. It's really hard to get on an offense that has scored 132 points in the first 2 games of the season. I do think, though, that the defense is going to be the difference in this season. I really do. As much as our offense is looking great against inferior opponents, it's going to be up to the defense to close some of these doors in games, especially if we have any hopes of going up to what's looking like a very formidable team up in Autzen. So let's start where we started with the offense. Let's go to the defensive line and give our grades. What did you think of the defensive line performance on Saturday?
Well, much like the receivers, I kind of want to divide it into two separate groups because the pass rushers I thought were really damn good. But when you look at the interior guys, especially in run defense, like I think Jade Abasiri had a damn good game across the board. So I'm not talking about him at all. But I thought that our big guys inside really struggled. And for me, there were definitely some red flags raised in that area. Starting with the positives, though, Anthony Lucas is an absolute wrecking ball. He seems to have taken a big step forward. He's got a lot of spring in his step to start this year. He is being very violent, very physical. He and Jade Abasiri teamed up to absolutely obliterate a tackle and a running back on one play. I posted that on my Twitter too. It's hilarious if you haven't seen it. Thought we also saw another standout performance from Cam Fountain. That kid is just getting better and better. And a guy that Tim was talking up all offseason that has been playing out of his mind to start this year is Braylon Shelby. He had a really good closeout to the year in that bowl game, and he has carried that over into this season. But when you look inside, and again, he's a true freshman making his debut after barely playing high school football. I'm not going to read too much into how Jakeem Stewart played. Are there some moments he's going to want back? Absolutely. He got blown off the ball a few times. He also made some good plays rushing the passer. Very young kid. He's going to get much, much better. He's a freak athlete. You see the way he moves. Not worried about him whatsoever. I will say the performances from Keyshawn Silver and Jaw Jarrett were a little underwhelming. Don't like to see guys that size, that strong, getting pushed back the way that they were. Now, Georgia Southern is solid on the offensive line. Obviously nowhere near at a Big Ten level. So that was a little concerning. Thought it was a more quiet day from Devin Tompkins, expecting him to rebound in a big way against Purdue. So yeah, very pleased with the pass rush in general. Very pleased with our defensive ends. But the guys inside, I think, can play much better and have to play much better going forward. That was nowhere near an acceptable performance. So my grade is going to be a C. If it was just the defensive ends and just the pass rush, it would have been an A-. But if we're just talking about the run defense or the guys inside, it probably would have been a C- or a D+. So I'm just going to average that out to a C.
Yeah, all fair points you're making. I, however, do see the issue as you're seeing in the middle. I am making concessions for the fact that we've talked about it a bunch of times, you might be NFL size, but either because of injury or just because you're a freshman, or in the case of Jakeem Stewart, you didn't play a lot of football last year. You're kind of shaking off a little bit of rust. He did show some explosiveness. He did show why everyone's drooling on him. He did play well against Division I talent. But overall, I agree with you. I was a bit underwhelmed with the way that we were able to contain the run game inside. Now, we're going to talk about linebackers in a moment, which had something to do with that. But I would like to see this team be a lot more physical, especially on the interior. I've been talking about all offseason that how USC is going to just create havoc plays, create some more sack opportunities by really driving that pocket consistently. They did it on Saturday. And as you brought up, against a very formidable, large offensive interior for Georgia Southern. But I want to see, just like everything in football on the line, you want to see consistency. And I just think on a couple of plays, they got blown out of, creating some holes that is kind of unacceptable. But could we talk enough about the pass rush on the outside? That was a major point of emphasis in the offseason. We were worried about the fact that last year the sack numbers and the tackles for losses just seemed to be vacant as soon as Eric Gentry was not in the game. It just seemed like just the dynamic was lost. Watching Lucas blow up that right side and then take out the running back is so encouraging to see a man that big, that strong, that quick, that fast, just gobbling up defenders. And just, it wasn't just one play, guys. It was the entire night, and it paid off for him. Not only getting his first sack, but his second sack of his career. I think they've unleashed it. I think that the genie is out of the bottle, and he is going to make a lot of plays. I think the Big Ten's not going to know what they hit him. Last year, you saw it all the time. He was just a half a step away from getting home.
Yes.
If he's picked up that half step, it's going to be a great draft year for him. So I'm really excited for Anthony Lucas. I've been high on Shelby the whole time. Shelby had 4 tackles and didn't get to the quarterback, but he just was so disruptive and that it's hard, not to bring him up every single week. I like Boucard got out there. He's young. He's also showing the flashes of the quickness, but I just think he needs a little more strength up front, Gabe. I don't know. He's showing the quicks. He's showing the get off, but he's not he's kind of getting those physical beats that I don't really think our interior can afford in the Big Ten. So overall, very happy. I'm with you. The pass rush on the outside was just insanely good. Some question marks after this game about the defensive interior. Overall, though, I'm going to go with a solid B. So let's move over to the linebackers. And now, after last week, I think if you remember, I was a bit critical of the linebackers at times being a bit too aggressive, getting upfield, not staying, not showing sound gap assignments, and the integrity kind of failing. This week, I don't know if there was a conversation or not about that, but it seemed like they were almost tentative this week as linebackers. There's no denying Eric Gentry led the team in tackles with 10 tackles, a sack, and a tackle for loss, which quite frankly is Eric Gentry when he's healthy and he's playing. We've seen that for the entire time he's been here at USC and a little bit when he was at Arizona State. So that's almost to be expected, really. I mean, 10 tackles in a game, though, no matter what, is going to make an impact. It isn't special. We both also kind of where I get kind of worried about is I just would have liked to have seen them playing faster, getting up into those gaps and the run game. I don't think they were a liability that I caught, Gabe, in the passing game, but it just seemed like time and again, there was just too much space. You know what I mean? Up in the middle. They weren't closing out plays. They were not getting up and playing quick. It was almost like they were tentative. And so I think that kind of hurt them and hurt their score overall. I still continue to like to see the athleticism of the linebacker room in general, though. I mean, there's no denying that. I really have enjoyed seeing Jaden Walker, a young guy, get out there. And then when you saw Matai Tagovailoa get out there and Elijah Newby getting in and showing off his athleticism, it's just across the board amazing to watch, like Jaden Walker and these guys just have outstanding games. I just need to see them attacking more because in this Danton Lynn defense, you've talked about it, I've talked about it. These linebackers play a vital role, and there's just too much space. There's a bit too tentative, I think, at the point of attack, and I'd like to see that tighten up a little bit. So grade wise, I might be being a bit harsh, but and it's hard when you have Eric. See, it's so weird because if I could take Eric Gentry out of this score, it changes dramatically, right? So, but I'm going to end up giving it a C+, and that's pretty much on the shoulders of Eric Gentry. And it's hard. Here's another thing. I'm being super critical here because I'm giving out way too many high grades, and I don't want people, coming at me in the comment section.
Sunshine Pumper Tim, Bootlicker Tim, back at it.
Hey, Tim, I'm never going to forgive you for being such a bootlicker. Never.
But as far as you have the athleticism, as far as you have these flashing, they didn't really give up a lot. You take away that busted coverage. We have another game where this defense gives up 13 points. And I wonder if that might, just the scoreboard might be influencing me. I don't know. It just did not seem like a strength on our defense. Whereas I think that they have the ability with Desmond Stevens to get up in there and be a strength on the defensive side of the ball. So yeah, I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to give them a C+.
Okay. So the thing with the linebackers, like Eric Gentry is going to be Eric Gentry. Just like you said, we know what to expect there. He did get tweaked in this game and he was playing through pain. I don't know why they kept him in as long as they did. So that's something to monitor for sure. Cause I know that you said he was very lively and having a good time post game. So that was really good to hear. Saw some videos from the stands of him running around and it looked like his ankle was feeling good after the game, but it is a wait and see. But we simply have to see more from Desmond Stevens. Plain and simple. He's kind of had a bad habit the first 2 weeks of getting sucked into the line. Like when there's a run play, he doesn't hang back and diagnose where to attack. He kind of just comes up and then he just gets sucked into a massive pile of bodies and he can't make a play on the ball carrier.
But Gabe, at the same time, though, what I'd like to see is him to diagnose that hole and fill it. And I mean, I know he has his assignment, but it just seems like he's hanging back and he's a bit tentative. And he's making the play a couple yards downfield, though.
I mean, I don't really know if he is making the play, though, because he played 49 snaps in this game and he finished the day with 2 tackles, which in a Danton Lynn system for your Mike to have 2 tackles, not good enough, plain and simple. Jaden Walker, on the other hand, comes in for 15 snaps and he finished the day with 3 tackles. Like when he came in, he immediately diagnosed a swing pass and he attacked it full speed and made a great play in the backfield. It was one of the better defensive plays of the day, in my opinion. But that's the kind of decisiveness, which I think that's the key word with Desmond, just like you said, being decisive, knowing what you're doing, coming up. And I know he's a coverage linebacker, but at some point you have to come up and commit and fill that hole and take on the ball carrier. As physical a collision as it's going to be, you have to get in there, you have to mix it up, and you have to make the play. You're right. He's been hanging back a little bit too much. He has to get up in there and make his presence known. That's why the tackle count is so low, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that and he had a nice fourth down play, but again, this is not in run defense. This isn't. Well, it's a screenplay. So, but it's extension of the run game, and he diagnosed it well. He got out there, and the back dropped the ball, but he was there to make the play if it was needed. And I think his pressure probably helped. The guy probably did hear footsteps. That's why he maybe dropped that ball. But his problem, like you said, is not off ball. It's in the run defense, and you're right. It just seemed a bit loose, and that has to get tightened up in the run-heavy offenses that we're going to see in the Big Ten.
Yeah, but for a grade, I'm going to go with a B-, a little bit higher than you. I guess I'm the new sunshine pumper on this podcast, but yeah, Eric Gentry was so productive in such limited snaps that I am going to give it to him. But moving back to the cornerback room, I think that DeCarlos Nicholson has for sure solidified that cornerback one role. He's looked really damn good so far. He's for sure outperformed my expectations for him. And yeah, up to this point, I'll be honest, I was completely wrong on him. I mean, he's played better than I thought he was capable of. So very happy for him, very proud of him. That interception was a beautiful play. Now the big question is going to be, who's going to be that other corner across the field? We're seeing a lot of guys competing for that role. Chasen Johnson did make his debut in this game, and he's coming back from injury. He looked pretty rusty. He was very grabby, didn't look the most confident I've ever seen him. So in the Purdue game, the guy I would want to see starting is actually going to be Braylon Conley. I really liked what we saw from him in this game. He has really good recovery speed. He's very physical. Yeah, I was very impressed with him. Still not sold on DJ Harvey. He has the experience, but I don't think he's been that great on the field. We also saw Marcellus Williams in this game. His tackling stands out. I mean, even compared to Kamari Ramsey or anybody, he's an elite tackler, just like we saw at St. John Bosco. Another question is the nickel room. Now, Kevin Longstreet was playing a lot and early in this game. I don't know if that's a long-term thing, if that was just for this game. He didn't play bad by any means. He's just so physically limited. It's hard for me to really see that as a viable option going forward. Now, Lynn does like smaller nickels. We saw that with Greedy Vance, with Jalen Smith. So in that sense, I can see it. But yeah, it's hard for me to see Kevin being a long-term starter for this team, in my personal opinion. Grade-wise, they didn't get tested a ton. We'll get to the safeties, who I thought had more of the errors in this game than the actual corners themselves. So I am going to give them a B. DeCarlos played great, and there was solid play around him. But yeah, I think a solid B is fair.
Yeah, I have to echo most of what you're saying. DeCarlos Nicholson is just making that transition now in his second year in the scheme. He had a few issues last year, but you guys have to remember he's coming over. It's been well publicized that he was a quarterback, but I think that having that quarterback that translates into a position player, Lincoln Riley's gone over this if you paid attention to any of his pressers, it just shows you that player has the understanding to diagnose offensive schemes, right? And know the offensive side of the ball. And how could that not translate to being able to make that great play where he comes over, jumps that route and gets his first interception of his career? You cannot teach his length. You cannot teach his tenacity. And it's starting to show on the field. Again, I've been a big Marcellus Williams fan, not just because he's a St. John Bosco grad, but just because, like you said, his tackling ability, playing up at the line, just an imposing guy up there. I would like him to tighten up the coverage a little bit, kind of like with the defense on the line. We'll talk about linebackers. Just want to see a little more aggressive and be there. Again, I don't know what their coaches are telling them. Just overall, that kind of goes for the whole cornerback room. That was the one downside I felt. I do like what you're saying about Braylon Conley. I think Braylon Conley, we've been high on him since the offseason began. Just really making strides at that corner position. I know that the staff is showing a lot of confidence in him as well. Chasen Johnson did look rusty. You can tell he's coming off of an injury. So overall as a unit, I was happy with their play. You can see there's a little bit of rust out there. You can see that they still can't figure out that second corner position. I wonder how much having Prophet Brown and Alex Graham is changing the outlook of the overall secondary. So given all of that, I'm just give them just a basic B because I think they did play well and for the most part kept the passing game in check. So that just leaves the safeties. Last week, they got a lot of recognition with DJ Harvey playing really out of his mind, playing great, getting that interception, that pick six that really accentuated the defensive performance as a whole. But this week, he kind of came crashing down. He was basically responsible for 2 of the 3 scores for Georgia Southern. One of them was a busted coverage. The other one, he had pretty good coverage, closed it the last bit. It was a better thrown ball. Maybe it wouldn't have happened, but he ended up getting the PI and a great play by Brown to haul it in for the touchdown. But after that, he did a great job. He had 6 tackles. So in the run game, he was solid. But it just seemed like on those 2 pass plays, it really hurt USC. And again, they talk about, especially Lincoln Ryan says, great players. It's on your off. And it's not about making the great big play. It's on when you have a bad play, it doesn't hurt the team too much. Anytime that you have a blown coverage, that is basically almost inexcusable. So that hurt the room as a whole. But I was really happy with the younger players. Really happy to see Christian Pierce and Marquise Gallegos get in and show some great play at safety. But overall, I just think that the room with a blown coverage and really being the reason for 2 of the 3 scores, I'm going to have to drop it down to a C.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. That was the Bishop Fitzgerald I saw on tape at NC State. I watched like 4 or 5 of his games from last year. He makes a lot of really good plays, and then he'll have a few of those as well. Normally not 2 in one game, so I wouldn't expect that going forward. But yeah, just some communication issues on the back end. Got to do a better job in man coverage for that first touchdown. Yeah, when Kamari Ramsey isn't back there, the level just goes down at the safety spot. Obviously, Kamari Ramsey is one of the best players in the country. But we do need to get our nickel health back on track. We need Alex Graham. I know we're not going to get Prophet Brown back for a while, but that was a much bigger miss than I think anybody, especially me, thought at the time. Yeah, I'd like to get Kamari Ramsey back to that safety spot. And yeah, they were kind of just unremarkable on the day. And just like you said, with those 2 touchdowns allowed, I am going to give them a C-. So yeah, that is all we have for the Trojan Report Card. You have any final thoughts on the game, Tim?
Yeah, I think we do have to be a little bit nitpicky given the level of competition they're playing. However, if you're not optimistic about the question marks we had going into the season, quarterback play, pass rush, and consistency on the offensive line, I think that this team, 2 games into the season, is showing us that they've come a long way. We're going to find out next week when they go on the road, which they had trouble with last year, playing Big Ten quality athletes, just how far they have come. I'm really happy what I've seen with Jaden Mayava. He had a slight regression. Let's just hope that was some issues, not just on that one turnover worthy one, but also just with accuracy and going back to some bad footwork. Hopefully going into this game, we can close that one. We're going to know a lot more about what's going on at the guard position going into this game, I'm sure. But I do feel confident about the offensive line. And I'm just happy to get past these games. I know that no one's going to get excited about Purdue. No one's going to overly excited about Michigan State. But this season is going to start ramping up, and we're going to see what these Trojans are made of. I'm just glad to see Big Ten football start. Never thought I'd say those words myself.
Yeah, I feel a little nauseous hearing you say that, but yeah, excited to get into conference play. Purdue isn't the flashiest opponent, but I do think it's a very good starting point for us and going on the road. Very curious to see how this team is going to look. To me, on the field, I mean, I predicted 8-4 before the season started, and we just looked like an 8-4 team to me. Like, I think we're going to have a really big win at some point. Like, I think we're going to knock off a Notre Dame, maybe an Oregon. They looked really damn good, unfortunately, so we'll have to see about that. But I also think we're going to drop a few that we probably shouldn't. This team doesn't appear to be world beaters. There is a lot to be positive about. There's a lot to be skeptical about. So it is going to be a fascinating watch this week when we head to West Lafayette.
I agree. If we don't clean up some of these penalties that we're seeing, I brought up the possible offensive pass interference. A couple of them could have gone, but the hands to the face over and over and over again in that game was a bit alarming. that's something that should happen maybe once in a game and it gets corrected and talked about. I'm certain it was talked about. It's just I saw helmets popping off that whole game and one or two that weren't called. So these weren't ticky-tack calls. These were absolute penalties, and I'm not sure why the problem continued throughout the game. Getting those things cleaned up, USC is going to be in some close games as we saw last year. The difference between wins and losses often are penalties and turnovers. So let's hope that USC can clean up both of those things. And then I'm still staying with my 10-2 because I've seen a lot of progress in these first two games.
But guys, that is going to do it for this episode of the USC Football Podcast. We really appreciate every single one of you, especially the ones that have made it to this point in the podcast. If you're still listening, give yourself a pat on the back. Me and Tim really appreciate it. In terms of where to find me, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at the Trojan Blade, as well as on YouTube, uploading a ton of USC content over there. So make sure you are checking out the channel and hitting that subscribe button.
And you can find me on LAFB. Every Wednesday, we do a call-in show, the Trojan Conquest call-in show, where we take your live phone calls. We might even open up the StreamYard this week. Not sure if that's going to happen or not. And you could also find all the work we do, Ryan Dyrud, the rest of the guys, on LAFB Network. We cover the Trojans daily with articles, with photo galleries. You'll see some of my photos popping up there this week as you saw. Hopefully you guys got a chance to check out the photos I put up from the Missouri State game last week. And just want to echo what Gabe said. If you guys have gone this far and you're still listening, you guys are all great Trojans. We appreciate you all being here.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening. Take care and fight on.